Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life.
Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I'm really excited about this. Actually, this is a long-time friend of mine that I haven't talked to in years. Before we started the recording, we were actually just discussing the first time we met in a small hole-in-the-wall gym at Fort Bragg, and we also worked together in Iraq after that. So anyway, this is my good friend John Holschen. Definitely was an influence on me when I was younger. We talked a lot about tactics when we were over there in Basra. And I learned a lot, some of which I was stubborn about at the time, but I came around to later on. And the other reason this is exciting for me is it seems like every time I run into somebody with the same shooting interest as me, they ask me if I know John. So it's always nice to realize how small the world it actually is. And it's also very humbling to realize how much of an influence others have had on me. And hopefully I can pass it on a little bit. So John, real quick, let everybody know about your background and kind of what you're doing now, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Lifetime martial artist. That really started, we think about things and sometimes, it's easy to start to not go all the way back, but to really, I realized to give credit, my grandfather was a boxer and a wrestler back when in the Midwest there was Saturday night wrestling at every little what we would now call a strip mall. At the time, those were the shopping centers. But in any case, no weightlifter, and it started me very young with the idea that a man should be able to take care of himself and his family and the people extended around him. So that kind of got me started on a path of martial arts. That then led into shooting competitively, starting in junior high school and on up through in the military. Had a career in the military, first in military intelligence, human intelligence. I was a Russian language, what we would now call a human intelligence collector back in the day. Forward to latter half of my career in Special Forces, first as a weapons sergeant, then as a medic, intel sergeant, team sergeant. And then Global War on Terror, both contracting and some direct government work over the years, in and out of both Iraq and Afghanistan a number of times. But through all that, one of my passions was training, teaching other people, particularly private citizens. Between all that, you come back. I'm a husband, I'm a dad. I want to keep me and mine safe, and I believe that every human has the right. One of those core rights is to the ability to be you and not have anybody be able to force or infringe upon that. And that means, unfortunately, in this day and age, that you, and all ages, frankly, that you need to have some self-defense capability. So that's really my passion, is teaching people about self-defense related stuff. My interest in shooting, really, I shot for a few years. I was in places where there were a lot of, the outlaw matches, so to speak. Really enjoyed doing that. But I realized that my only real interest in it was for what it gave me operationally. I never really got into, it was just kind of another sport I never really got into the passion of the sport. It was, what does it do for me operationally? Which is why I really love to see people like yourself that understand both sides of the equation at such a significant depth that you can cross back and forth between them and truly understand that. We have so many awesome technical shooters these days that don't have the benefit of that kind of experience and background. So, man, they are just incredibly impressive and just very motivating in what they can do technically. But they haven't had the opportunity to develop the mindset, the experience, the tactical applications that that you have, for example.
And I think it's interesting for me on a couple levels, because I think our journey started pretty much the same way. Like mine started, I did martial arts really seriously as a kid, and then I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to mean something.
Yep.
And that was the whole reason I joined the Army, was I wanted to follow that path, right?
Right.
And the other thought I just had was, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, because I would like to think in my own humble way, I've had some small part to play in the current popularity of performance shooting on the tactical side, right? Not as much as other people, but I think I've influenced people at least a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
And that's good. But I also think, and this is something I'd love to talk to you about based on conversations we've had going way back decades now, is that I think to a degree we've kind of almost swung the pendulum too far.
In what way?
I find that a lot of people these days are, and I don't want to say overemphasizing the performance part, because it is important, right? I mean, nothing matters if you can't put rounds on target in the time you have to do it,
Yep.
And more skill is certainly never a bad thing. But there is more to solving those problems than just shooting fast and accurately. And I think that people, just like it used to be that people got a false sense of security and confidence from the other side of the equation, I think now we're seeing people get a false sense of security and confidence from just that side of the equation. And I really wish people kind of balanced it a little bit better. Am I making sense?
That's, again, that's something that, coming from, for example, coming from the Special Forces background, the reality of it is there is so much that you have to be operating at a very high level, and there's so many different skill sets. Talk about call for fire, talk about obviously the use of your individual weapons, but communications, call for fire, navigation, you've got to sustain yourself. There are all these things that we have to spend time on to actually be able to do our job. And in the self-defense world, if you have not had certain life experiences, you may not realize what some of those other components are, even, let alone, and therefore know that you need to spend time on them. And then the difficulty in finding training methodologies to actually allow you to develop skills in that is a whole nother challenge. So it's natural and easy to focus on the particular skill sets that I can measure well. I've got good metrics. I can see my performance. I can see my direct results of the work I do. And not that the work is easy, but it's much easier to focus our attention there. And it's more difficult to find the other things.
Well, and the other things aren't really as tangible to a degree unless you've put them to the real test, right?
Exactly.
And you can get the data. And that's one of the things that's actually one of the strengths of working on your shooting. And I say this all the time, is it's one of the only martial endeavors where all the data is right there.
Yeah.
If you've got a shot timer and a scoreable target and video, you can literally you can literally collect every single data point you need to get better.
Right.
But it's a little different when you talk about an actual fight, right? And this is something that I think is important too, is people underestimate the importance of like the psychological aspects of fighting and all those other factors that come into play. And fighting is still fighting. Like, just having a gunfight is just a different tool you're using for the fight. Just like a knife fight's just a different tool. It's all the same principles and it's all the same psychologically. And people underestimate that, just like people used to underestimate the fact that shooting is an athletic endeavor. Right? And now people are getting better about that.
Yeah.
And we're still missing part of the puzzle.
Man, there's so much to unpack in what you just said, man. There's so many directions, but here's an example that might help some people. There is a video out that I do not know the origin of. It was, I'm guessing, a class that you taught. I went to try and find it, and I don't know where I found it the first time, but I have it saved, and I've actually analyzed it. That's just one of the things that Actually, my job entailed was a bunch of video analysis at one point, so I have a structure for doing that. But it shows on video you shooting your Monticello drill. And it also shows Gabe White shooting your Monticello drill. Now, Gabe White is one of the freaky fastest men that I have ever seen with a gun.
Oh, yeah. I love Gabe.
Incredible.
I swear to God, he's such a good guy.
Incredible performance, absolutely incredible. But the example here is, if we look at, so Monticello drill, you want to tell folks what that is that might not be familiar with it? Just briefly.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a drill that actually replicates a gunfight I was in as a Chicago cop. It happened on the west side of Chicago. Basically, it wound up being the classic Wild West movie showdown, which you almost never have as a gunfight, right? Mm-hmm. We were in an alley. He went for his gun. I took a large lateral step to his offside to force him to track me. Mm-hmm. And then there was no cover available, and I was about 10 yards away. So I advanced on him, firing on him as I advanced and keeping the pressure on him. And one of the interesting things to me is that I could literally see the fact, I remember this as plain as day, that he had tunnel vision. Because when I took the lateral step to the side, I could see the puzzled look on his face. I think I disappeared like a ghetto ninja in a cloud of crack dust from his perspective. Yep. And then I just kept the pressure on, so he never had a chance to regain his momentum, to regain the initiative.
Right. So you do a drill based on that, and it is that lateral motion and then advancing while shooting the target. So in this video that I'm looking at, first thing is I saw yours first, and movement to me is one of the things that I identify as something that is an area that could use a fair amount of improvement in a lot of shooters. So it's one of my focus areas. But how we move. For example, if we break those down, and what I did is I put that video in video editing software so I can move it. I forget how many hundredths of a second at a time. And I look at the first quarter second of your movement and the first quarter second of Gabe White's movement. Now, if the task is get to point A so that you can engage, let's say you're running a match stage, you've just shot a target here, you need to be in this other position before you engage this next target. The mechanics of how you would move are mechanics of movement. If the task, however, is get out from in front of something that is already coming your way, the classic get off the X, right? And what I found, people understand this better viscerally if we take it out of the idea of bullets. So I literally have a plastic, you'll laugh, I have a plastic hatchet. And I stand in front of us, we've ungunned. And I say, okay, if I stand here and I'm going to throw this hatchet at you from 5 yards or 7 yards, what are you going to do? And just pull somebody out at random to demo it. And everybody steps out from in front of the hatchet as I let go of it, right? But we look at how they move to get out from in front of the hatchet versus how they move. If I say, I need you to move from here to over there as quickly as you can, it's different. If we look at the first quarter second of movement, in your case, what happens, you're moving to your right, you pick up your right foot, you extend, you drive as far as you can to your right. You have covered at least a body length to the right just in stepping out with your right foot. Then you begin to step with your left foot. In the first quarter second, your left foot has made a full stride forward. You've picked up your right foot and it's passing your left foot. You are about a body width and a half. I'm sorry, I think you're about 2.5 body widths from where you started in the first quarter second. Gabe uses a different movement technique, a movement technique that's absolutely appropriate for moving to position B as quickly as you can. He uses what's called a loading step, a split step. Some folks call it a scissor step. It's a step that you see a shortstop do when the batter's just hit the ball. His both legs extend equally. He goes straight down, plyometrically loads both legs, and then explodes off of that leg in very, very rapid movement. And he uses that acceleration to get to, let's say, 3 yards away very, very quickly. And I don't know if Gabe gets there quicker than you do or not, but what I do know is in the first quarter second, Gabe has actually only displaced his center line half of a body width. you have displaced your center line 3 times that far. The point is, you move like a fighter. You move like you're getting out from in front of a punch of whatever that's coming at you. It may or may not be the most efficient way to start a 50-yard dash or even a 10-yard movement, but it absolutely is the most efficient way to get out from in front of that guy's intent, that bullet, get off the X. My point is that we're measuring things. If you're only measuring to the first shot fired at 3 yards away, Gabe might get there before you. I don't know. I have no idea how you guys are in terms of speed. I know he's really, really fast.
He's fast. He's good.
He's really good. Yeah. But the point is, even when we're measuring metrics, if you have no exposure to fighting or limited exposure to fighting, you might not be measuring the right metric. You're not looking at the right thing. And that's one of the dangers that I see. And not a danger. That is, let's put it in the positive. That's what you can bring to the table. That's what certain other people can bring to the table, is how do we use these metrics from performance shooting and ensure that our performance is optimized for the fighting task. In some areas, it's different than the shooting task.
That's really interesting to me. I'm going to have to go. And you know what? If you want it, I'll send you the raw video. I'll go find it and I'll send it.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I'll Dropbox it to you.
Low quality. I will send you. I put it into a PowerPoint where I've got it, and I've got still photos of every 10th of a second.
Oh, now, I'd love to see that. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Now, because the camera angle is different between the two of you. Gabe's is shot more from directly behind. We can see yours is shot more from an angle. So it's not apples to apples. But if you're used to analyzing video and you put some index marks on there, which is what I did, I can accurately see how far you moved in that amount of time. So, but anyway, it's stuff like that. That's what I'm getting at, is that, yes, this is sports science, but the sports are different. And, receiving a serve in tennis or fielding a line drive as a shortstop, we use one movement technique to load, figure out which direction we have to go, and then explode in that direction. Getting out from in front of a punch is a different movement technique. And getting out from in front of a bullet is a different movement technique. And in the current shooting sports, we have no reason to look at the defensive component because there is no opposing offense. We're only looking at our offensive component. So we can absolutely build that. We can absolutely maximize it. We absolutely should build it. We should maximize it. But there's more to the story, as you said. Just before the metal.
And that's really fascinating. Like I'll definitely send you the raw video, and I would love to see your analysis if that's okay. And none of this is meant to take anything away from Gabe, because I love Gabe.
I can't tell you how, Gabe is one of the, and he's such a neat person as well. He's an awesome instructor. And my point is quite the opposite. He has absolutely maximized his performance for these things. He is an awesome example of optimized performance to a specific objective.
And I'm trying to think of how to articulate something. You kind of actually took me off guard a little bit, because I got to admit, I did not analyze those two videos that way at all. It wasn't even something I thought about when I recorded that video,
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. And I think that, so the laws of physical performance are inviolable, right? I mean, the way the body moves is the way the body moves. And that's one of the things that I think, like I said, historically, we've downplayed when it came to shooting. Mm-hmm. People, for some reason, didn't appreciate that moving with a gun is still movement, that it's still athletic movement.
Yep.
But you're right. It's like the old Army cliche, right? The task, conditions, and standards. Like what is the task? What are the conditions? What are the standards?
Sure.
And it does change the way you apply those principles of movement based on the conditions. What's your desired end state? What are the things that can mess you up? What are the potential pitfalls?
Mm-hmm.
What is the threat? How is the threat acting towards you? And that's one of the things that, like, I tell my civilian self-defense students all the time, that they need to find some way to work this stuff against a non-cooperative opponent, right? And it's hard because it's hard for them to get simunitions training. It's hard. And to be honest, I think a lot of simunitions training isn't run optimally anyway, but that's a separate topic, right?
Yep.
It's like everything else. We tend to do a lot of scenarios and not enough drills.
Exactly. So my approach to movement on drills is, so I get their draw time, and this is nothing new, but I just tie it together a little bit differently, I think. I get their draw time, I set a par timer for that time, and I see how far can you move inside that draw time. So you moved X in the same amount of time it took you to draw. Now what we want to work toward is, so let's say, just for easy numbers, let's say you've got a 1.5 second draw. This sounds like some Tooler drill type stuff, right? Well, my indoor range is actually 24 feet across. So it's just over 7 yards across. And what we find is that inside the draw stroke, you have to start slowing down so you don't run into the wall on the other side of the range. So there's some, but basically, almost everybody can move all the way across my range inside the time it takes them to draw. But if I tell them I want you to move across the range while drawing and shooting, most people will shoot 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 times. Well, did they magically get 5 times faster in their shooting? No, of course not. They got 5 times slower in their moving. 3 times slower in their moving is what actually happened, because it's not all draw time, right? So what I do is I say, okay, this is how far you moved in that amount of time. I want you to work toward, let's get you to have 90% of your draw speed while moving 90% as far. That's our first objective. Now we've got a truly explosive get off the X movement. Then if we also talk about how we not just maximum speed to get there, but that in the first quarter second, I need to displace my center as far as possible to get the benefit of not getting shot, for example, like your Monticello situation. He's ahead of you to some degree. You're responding to him. So then we look at that. How do you physically move? Picking up the foot in the direction of movement, driving off the other leg. How does that mechanically work? Versus, again, if I'm teaching baseball or tennis, I'm teaching the loading step, right? It's a different mechanical movement. So my goal is get you to move 90% as far, losing only 10% of your draw speed. That's the first drill. Right. And again, the point is, now we're back to drills that we can then put into use in little mini scenarios. Then we can put into use ultimately in free form, force on force, and that sort of thing. But if you have never done the drills, you don't know how to physically move. All the time you spent moving and shooting in the average class, really, you're training the wrong stuff. You're not using the right techniques.
And I think that, like, this is one of the dangers of and I want to be careful about how I say it, because I'm not saying scenarios are a bad thing to do in training. That's not my point. You know what I mean? Like the full blown, this is the bad guy, he's doing this, you need to do this, and have a whole scenario about it. Whether you're talking about a variable scenario with a role player, whether you're talking about a course of fire, but it's set up to emulate an actual event, right? And I think those things are important, but they're more important, I think, as test. Because if you think about it, and you have a martial arts background, you don't learn to fight by sparring. You learn to apply your fighting by sparring. You learn how to do it with drilling and technical work and all of that. If all you do is spar, you're not going to be an optimal fighter, because you haven't done the homework. You haven't done the foundational stuff.
Yeah. You haven't actually increased your skills from what you walk through the door with. And that's one of the issues I think we would do to address, even in the shooting community, the words we use. And people don't understand, what is learning? What is in terms of, first we have to be exposed to the material, then we have to practice the material, then we have to look for how the material is applied in, in the microcosm, what triggers it, and then what kind of situations that fits into. And so often all we get is, well, you just do this thing over and over again. We call it a drill, and your goal is to do it faster with the same accuracy. Obviously, first you have accuracy, right? And that's awesome. That's how we get a piece of it. We get better at a piece of it, but we're missing the application piece. And, again, we're even missing the perception piece. We're not even drilling the perception piece. And that's a whole nother topic, but it looks like you had a thought before I jump into that.
I did, and I do want to get to the perceptual stuff, because I really thought there was some cool things about what Carl told me the other day about the class you have coming up over there, and I wanted to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is it's a perspective thing, but it matters for training, right? The point of the drill is not to get good at the drill.
Exactly.
The point of the drill is to elicit the desired training response in your skills, to improve something about your skills.
Yeah. And
I think all too often we think of the drill as something in and of itself that we want to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's really the point. Like, it's the point of bill drills is not to be taking nothing away from Isaac Lockwood. I wish I was half as fast as that guy is. He's a good guy too. But the point of the bill drill is not to be the bill drill world champion. The point of the bill drill is to make you better at certain parts of your shooting.
Sure.
Yep,
exactly. Yeah. And mostly the way we use drills, again, I wost say we're using them as a test or a quiz, in reality. And yes, because you're doing it over and over again, you are practicing it. But if, I've got a strong background in training design, and if we really break down, terminal learning objective, enabling learning objectives, what are the attributes, skills, knowledge, abilities that we need to accomplish the enabling learning objectives? How do we break that down? And of course, that's what the top shooters do. They know how to do that, and they figure out how to do it. But again, we have so many people that are, in my opinion, looking at it superficially, and they literally just, I watched some guy a while back on video, and he was straight up about it. He documented that he spent like 3 or 4 hours trying to do a thing. I don't even remember, but shoot X number, reload, shoot X number of shots. And he then broke for lunch. He didn't achieve it. And then he came back and did it for a few more hours, and he finally did one that he did it under the 2 seconds or whatever he was looking for. And he was ecstatic. And watching him, my analysis of, as a trainer and instructor, is the one time you did it was just an accident to begin with. He had the speed all the time. He didn't have the accuracy, except once. That's an example of how not to do it. And obviously, most people aren't doing it that way. But the power of social media and the desire to, post a winning score is strong in all of us. You're not good at the things we're good at without having a competitive streak. I get it. I understand it. But am motivated by, frankly, it sounds melodramatic, but the fact of the matter is, winning was not getting shot. Winning was coming home. And, the rest, it pales by comparison. So what are the skills we really need to win is where my passion is.
And I definitely want to talk more about that. So I have a couple thoughts about that style of training, right? And I want to hear your thoughts on it. This is reminding me a lot of the conversations we used to have over at Basra. So
there might have been some cigars and whiskey involved.
There might have been. There hopefully will be again in the future. So like I think that there is a value in some of that, right? As long as, and this is going to sound kind of mystical, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? As long as the reps are mindful.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're not just waving the gun around and you finally get it right with your chance, right? As long as you're actually paying attention to what's going on, I think there can be value in some of that when you're trying to push through to a new level of skill. But what I've found for myself is that if I do too much of that, it's like doing too many forced reps on a bench press.
Mhm.
I'm actually getting weaker, not stronger. It's like it's an intensity technique that I think is good in the right amounts.
Yeah.
But too much of it will make you worse, not better. I found it. Of course, I found by doing too much of it and it got worse, not better.
Yeah.
Because that's my personality type.
Right.
So, and I think, like I said, I think the key really is, and this is something that I'm really working hard on. Like, if you can see where your sights were
Mhm.
when every shot went,
Yep.
then at least you're processing why you didn't get the hits.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the danger comes when people are going so fast, and I've done it myself, where literally they can't remember a clear perception of where their sights were and what their sights were doing when the shot broke.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's how you get the bad habits. That's how you get sloppy, right? I think it's okay to miss in training as long as you know why you missed.
Yep.
I think.
Well, and I think, and we all do this as well. This is no great revelation, but building that, going back and forth between that speed and accuracy. We've got the requisite accuracy. You push the speed till the wheels fall off. You drop back whatever percent. You keep going till you're getting the accuracy at that percent. You build the speed, and I'm absolutely, and I'm for all that. There's absolutely massive benefit. The point is, we need to be able to work our weapon systems with unconscious competence.
Yes.
And that only comes from repetition. That's it. I mean, how do we drive? I'm too old to remember learning to drive, but I remember teaching my kids to drive. And the amount of effort that a new driver has to put into simply getting the car to stop where they want and go where they want. It's the amount of conscious mental effort is clearly enormous. You're coming up to a traffic light with a crosswalk and you say, okay, try and stop with your bumper within 6 or 8 feet of the crosswalk. And they're, total concentration, and they stop a car length short or 3 feet over the line. And now you've been driving a while. You don't even think about that. You are unconsciously competent to get the car to go where it wants. Hopefully that frees your brain up to pay attention to the other things that are going on in the environment rather than, daydream or whatever. We need that with our weapon systems. Absolutely. And you only get it through repetition. But now we need to recognize there's more we want to add to it. It's that simple. I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody.
Oh, no, I didn't. And I hope it didn't come across.
No, you
either.
did.
No, because I agree with you. Yeah. And I also think that the other danger in that, and I've noticed this in myself too, right, is that we don't remember the 500 reps where it was garbage. Mm-hmm. We remember the 1 rep where we hooked it up. And now we think that's our level of skill.
Right.
And that's not your level of skill. If it was your level of skill, you wouldn't have taken 500 reps to do it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think we have to really pay attention. And Tim Herron and I actually talked about this a lot. Do you know Tim?
I do.
Yeah.
So Tim's an awesome guy.
He's a great guy.
Tim is the combination of his personality, his technical expertise. So I saw Tim take a student's gun. So those of you who don't know Tim is a very small statured man. I saw him take a 1911 with full house loads and shoot it like he was shooting a 22. And I just clicked on at that. I'm like, I got to know what that guy knows. I got to figure out how in the heck he's doing that. And his knowledge level is incredible, and his personality, his ability to transfer it is awesome. So, yeah.
So Tim and I and Tim's a great guy. I love Tim. Tim and I were talking a lot for a while about measuring consistency as a metric of progress rather than measuring PRs as a metric of progress.
Okay.
And I think that's a mistake that a lot of us make, including me. Because the PRs are fun, right? They're exciting. They're fun. I did something I've never done before.
Right.
But it's not repeatable yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really your level of skill. That's you reaching towards a new level of skill.
Mm-hmm.
And when he keeps his training logs for his shooting, he has a really neat way of documenting it so that, and I won't give it away because it's part of his class, so I'll leave it for Tim.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
He's got a really, and you can come up with your own way of doing it. Anybody can, but it's a really neat concept where he's measuring the consistency rather than the peaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something more of us need to pay attention to, myself included.
Sure. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So let's talk about perception a little bit here and make
Yeah.
a change.
Yeah. I want to hear about this because this sounds like good stuff.
Well, so, one of the things, again, so one of the things from Special Forces, from people that are not familiar, is every event, whether it has a good outcome or a poor outcome, we conduct an after action review that is no holds barred. The gloves are off, and we're going to tear it apart. We're going to look for any possible room for performance improvement. And frankly, if you had a poorer outcome, it's even more critical to do so. But part of the process is we identify the things we want to sustain. In other words, the thing we're already doing well, we need to analyze how we get there and make sure we keep doing it. But we also need to analyze and look for improvement. And I find that when I get into certain environments, law enforcement, when I first started teaching cops, I found I had to be a little careful, because if I was analyzing a situation where a cop, God forbid, was killed or injured, people weren't used to that kind of no holds barred, very just mechanical analysis, and they would feel like I was speaking ill of the officer, for example. And there's absolutely no intent to do that. And I tell folks, particularly in a situation where an officer died, if that officer is up there looking down, do you not think he would want us to learn anything possible we could learn from his situation? So I look at things, and some of these situations on video where there was heroic performance, and it was absolutely heroic. However, there was still loss of life. However, there was still suboptimal outcomes. And the point is, it doesn't detract from the heroism at all, but there are things that we can learn. And what we see is, one of the situations that I do this with in terms of video analysis is the shooting in the church in White Settlement, Texas. And what we see there is absolutely heroic performance by a man named Jack Wilson, who was the head of church security, that ultimately had to take a 12-yard headshot on a moving threat, a man that had just shot 2 people and would have gone on to shoot a lot more. When we back up and analyze that action, what we see is that Jack was subject to something that is very common, and that is, it is very common for people to have a 2 to 4 second lag time between the presentation of an unexpected stimulus and their purposeful reaction to that unexpected stimulus. And Jack exhibited that. He gripped his gun and made no further motion for several seconds. Then he completed a draw and made an excellent shot. His heroism to start with, to put himself in that position, etc. But the point is, what can we do to avoid that 2 to 4 second lag time? How do we move, and what do we need to move from? And, Dustin Solomon points out in his book, Building Shooters, at any time we're talking use of deadly force, the stimulus is going to be visual. You may say you're a cop responding to a domestic violence call. You may have intelligence going in that you know what you're getting into. As you go through the door, you may hear somebody in the next room saying, "I'm going to F and kill you." But until you actually put eyes on, you don't know yet whether he actually has a weapon. He has the capability to carry out that threat. You don't know how many people are in there, which one you need to apply lethal force to. All of that is based on visual stimulus, which is something we don't practice very often in the shooting sports. The next reality of it is that, just like in Jack Wilson's situation, he had to deal with multiple friendlies moving in his environment. And people, sometimes when I have this discussion, they're like, "Well, you already made your decision before you drew." I did, but that doesn't mean the situation won't change in between the time that I made the decision and the time I need to break the shot. Jack talks about that he had to withhold his shot for some period of time because of a person moving in proximity to the line of fire. So again, something we don't actually practice. Now, at high levels, we get really good at seeing our sights constantly in relationship to the target. In other words, sight picture, what I call sight video, because in reality, it's all moving. I understand that it doesn't matter. Anyway, sight video, I've been teaching for years and years. But the ability to actually take in information that's outside your sight video or your sight picture, it turns out from some drills we've been doing that even a bright laser projection that's, even a shape that's, several inches in size, 18 inches outside the sight window, many people don't have a great ability to take that into account. The Air Force figured this out years and years ago. They did a bunch of research with the advent of jet fighters. For the first time, human beings are moving at speeds that were unheard of. And the question is, can they make decisions fast enough? And then can they even see fast enough? What do they see? And what they found was that in mock dogfights, a pilot who had tested at over 180 degrees of peripheral vision would miss the second enemy aircraft that enters the fight 30 to 45 degrees off of the primary aircraft. His focus, his attentional focus, tunnel vision in effect,
Yep.
Right? Well, those of us that grew up with hard front sight focus, we have trained ourselves to have tunnel vision. We have trained ourselves to ignore everything other than what's in our sight picture. And so happens at a couple levels. One, that mental preparatory work in the situation like the church, we can talk about that. And then the second piece of it is the continued perception during the engagement so that we can modify our engagement as necessary to changing circumstances. So that's an area that I focused on for the last several years.
There's a lot, like you said, there's a lot to unpack there too, right? I think that's another thing. This is one of the things that I talk about in my classes is that, like, I think that there is a lot of value in training fast splits for a variety of reasons. Building perceptual speed, learning to run the gun at max output, right?
Yep.
But I think that except for certain outliers, you would be hard pressed in the real world to find a situation where you truly need those fast splits. And I think that in most circumstances, you need to slow them down considerably so that you have a decision-making ability. Like I know that when I'm doing a bill drill at full send, if you yelled out stop on shot 3, I'm going to wind up sending shot 4. Because it takes that long to process the decision to stop at full send, right?
Absolutely.
And like a good friend of mine who's a retired SWAT cop who also does training, he was in a shooting where he sent 2 into the dashboard of the car because he'd already shot the guy and the guy fell out of sight.
Yeah.
And he was running the gun at max send, right?
Well,
and I think that that's something.
Ahead.
That's something we got to think about in our training too. And I'm not saying fast splits aren't important as a training tool. And I'm not even saying that there aren't times where they are valuable. It depends on a lot of context, right? What's the risk of the target? What do you have as far as bystanders, backstop, all of that stuff? How far are you from the threat? But
what I'm pointing out is that many shooters have a limited ability to even actually perceive, to even see, because the stop signal isn't somebody yelling stop. It's something
it's visual
field.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Their focus is to the point they literally cannot see the thing that would indicate the stop signal. I mean, we both probably know of situations where SWAT guys have shot somebody into the ground and several more because they were so locked in. But it may be add an individual to the fight. It may be, in other words, his buddy got into the fight. I'd like to know that before I start taking rounds from him. It may be that somebody's coming into proximity in front or behind him. I need to pause in the engagement. We had a case here locally a year or so ago, tragic case where an FTO, bottom line, they tried to do a traffic stop. The guy jumped in, took off, hit a pedestrian, crashed his car. The bad guy, they were coming so fast. When you hit a tree, you stop faster than your brakes will stop you. So they overdrove. They ended up on top of this guy. He bails out with a gun and charges the cop car shooting. When it's done, the FTO in the passenger seat had fatally shot his trainee in the driver's seat. As he tracked the guy, who was charging him, shooting into the car. He tracked him across and fired around that, and we don't know, did the trainee dodge at that moment? And I'm not saying it's not about that. I'm saying if we never practice the ability to see these things and change, we don't know if we're good at it or not. And I've been working with Dustin Solomon's system that lets me practice it, lets me put it on and quantify it. And I can tell you, we're not good at it until you practice it. And then you get better at it, just like everything else. It's a freaking amazing.
So tell everybody about the system. It's like a shot timer with a laser projector, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So
how does this work?
what Dustin Solomon has done, brilliant guy, and read his book, Building Shooters, for those of you that haven't, and that'll kind of give you, some ideas of where this was coming from. He had correctly identified this need to take in visual information, process visual information before and during the engagement, and was looking for ways to do it. Well, I was doing the same thing. You were probably doing similar things. I'm using handheld lasers. I'm using, we do the command fire thing, but the problem with that is when you turn around, what you see is what you got. It doesn't change. We use turning targets. Okay, that's one thing, but that is the only thing that could happen. What if his buddy jumps in on the fight rather than he turns away? What if somebody comes into proximity with him? A turning target's really doing what we need. So what Dustin did, if you imagine a shot timer with 3 lasers grafted to it with a bunch of computing power and networking power. So you've got this device now that I can program the on and offs of the lasers in the device. I can network it to multiple other devices. So, and we'll talk about how we use that in a minute. But now I can see from a visual on how long it took you to fire your first shot. And in the simplest version, let's say I'm going to give you this thing and you don't know, it's going to be on somewhere between 3 and 5 seconds. And you should, let's say I give you the simple version, a green laser or a green gun projected on the target means he's a deadly threat. You should start shooting him. You should stop shooting him when it goes away. So now we can see how long it took you to start shooting. We can see how long it took you to stop shooting. That's just the simplest version of it. And what we find is, so mechanically, I'm getting old, I'm slowing down a little, I've got some injuries that limit the amount of reps I can do now, and that's hurting me more than anything else. Really pisses me off. But anyway, maybe I'll take time and get some surgery here soon, and we'll fix part of that. But the point is, so mechanically, my average for 100% hits at 7 yards, honestly, probably about 0.2. I run some high teens, but I run some 2.2s also. So if I'm just going to mechanically, what's my split times? We'll say 0.2. That's not my best, but that's my average. That's what we're talking about, right? The consistency thing, right? I can consistently run 0.2s for 100% hits in an A zone at 7 yards. Now, do that with the ability to stop to begin with. And what we said is, let's call it a half second. We'll give you a half-second buffer because various folks will tell you it takes a quarter second to perceive and a quarter second to change your behavior. Honestly, it doesn't with training, but we'll start there. We'll say we'll give you a half second. Any shot after the light goes off is after, but it's not late unless it's over a half second. I can mechanically run 2.0 splits. I had to slow down to over 0.5 splits to not be shooting late to begin with. Now that I've been doing it for a couple of years, I can run high 2s to low 3s and stop with nothing more than, stop within 0.5. But to begin with, and this is what I see over and over and over from person to person to person, is that the speed of perception is far slower than their mechanical speed. Because I've got guys that are running, the mid-teen splits that, guess what? Their speed of perception is still slower than mine. So they're firing 3 shots at 0.15, let's say, after, and they're okay. They made it 0.45. You just made it. You're good. You're good to go. We're going to give you that. And that's Force Science and others tell us that within 0.5, we can explain it pretty easily. If it's caught on video or whatever. Over 0.5, it's going to get expensive. You're going to end up with a whole bunch of expert witnesses to try and explain lighting conditions, various issues. It's not unheard of, but it's a hell of a lot harder to explain. So let's, in a perfect drill situation, let's just say 0.5. and go from there. So there's an example, and I can tell you I've got several hundred people now that are pretty similar in that performance, that mechanically you may be able to shoot teens. Speed of perception is going to be probably double that for most people, if not more.
And that's something that I think is underemphasized hugely, and needs to have a lot more emphasis. Like it really does.
Yeah.
And you can do some of that with like the scenario stuff, but once again, that's not a drill. You're not drilling the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. And that's the point. If you do scenario-based training with any size class, what's a good number of reps to get in a day for a student? Man, if you get in 6 reps a day, you're in a really well-run class that is really well-staffed. You got multiple instructors and role players and so on. 3 to 4.5 a day is rare. Using things like the neuro system, I can give you 3 or 4 dozen reps. Now, we're not trying to replicate the fidelity of what does the gun look like, what does a draw stroke look like, any of that. We're just practicing the mechanics the same way we practice the mechanics of shooting. We're practicing now the mechanics of the visual perception, cognition, decision cycle applied while you're shooting. The other piece of that is that some people will find that the way they're currently shooting just won't work. If they are hard front sight focused, they will not see the changing stimulus, not at all. And I catch myself. For me, it'll be when I go like when I'm practicing defensive stuff. If I figure if I've shot him some in the chest and it hasn't worked, I probably ought to shoot at some other anatomical area. So I'll just do different things at different times. I'll say, okay, today 3 or 4 to the chest, then go to the head, a couple to the head, then reassess. But particularly when I go to the head, I'll tend to over focus on my sighting system, and then I realize, hey, the stimulus is gone. I didn't see it go off. It's just gone. I got to look at the timer and figure out when it went off. Shit, you were shooting for, half a second or more after the stimulus went away because you literally didn't see it because your attentional focus was tunnel visioned in on your sighting system to the point. Iron sights, well, dots make that a lot easier if they're using them correctly. Iron sights, it's absolutely doable. Tim Herron is a wonderful example of a man that I went to Tim one time and said, Tim, I have no model of how to teach target focus shooting with iron sights. Nobody ever taught me that. I'm not sure how to teach it. And I asked him to share with me how he teaches it, and he very generously did. But so many people don't even have that concept of how much target focus.
Oh, go
ahead.
I have a thought real quick. So I do some stuff in my applications class. Like my version of a Mozambique drill is not a designated number of rounds to the body. Mm-hmm. There's a cue from me as to how many rounds to the body followed up by a round to the head.
Awesome.
What's that?
What cue do you use?
Just a verbal cue. Just a verbal cue.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And I think that's better than, programming in hardwiring 2 and 1, but it still has weaknesses, right? Something like this would be fantastic for that. Have a visual signal on the target that is the cue for transitioning to the head box.
So I did the same. I started with just handheld lasers. And the cue was when I put the handheld laser on his head, you should transition to the head or the handheld laser wherever. So you can do a lot of this kind of stuff with handheld lasers, for example. We just can't quantify it the way we can with the neuro system. That's what Dustin's system is called, is neuro, N-U-R-O. Here's another one though for you. This now gets into a whole new realm. Imagine that I give you a target 3 yards from you, directly in front of you. Behind that target at 7 yards is another target. They're aligned so that you cannot see them. Right? The second target, that is. At the 7-yard line, there's also a third target. From your point of view, it is 1 pace to the right of the target that's directly in front of you. So you have a target in front of you at 3 yards, you have a target one pace to the right of that at 7 yards, and you have a third target that is behind the first one. So scenario-wise, if I'm going to give you the bedtime story, you're in whatever situation, it doesn't matter where you are, but there are multiple people in the environment. Someone has just stepped in front of or behind the other one. You know there's another person there, but you don't know anything more about it than there's another person there. So now if we do the same thing, and I tell you, I put the visual go stimulus, the green gun, on that target that's right in front of you at 3 yards. Well, your gun's in your holster, takes time to get it out. I could be moving during that time. I have some concern, or should have concern, that there's a potential innocent directly behind the guy I'm about to shoot. So my answer is I would like to be stepping strongly to my right while I'm drawing so that I bring those two subjects out of alignment with each other so that I can now engage that threat that's immediately in front of me. Okay, pretty straightforward. No questions there, right? Now we take the exact same setup. I make the one directly in front of you a visual threat and the one to your right a visual threat. Well, I have a rule. I don't like to look at the wrong end of guns. I don't like to look at muzzles. I definitely don't like to look at two muzzles. So I'm going to be stepping strong to my left as I draw so that I line those two guys up, right? Flanking maneuver, no different than unarmed. Two guys are going to beat on you. You don't wade into the middle of them, right? You move around the side and stack them. So I'm moving strongly to the left to stack that guy. So another scenario, I light up the guy to your far right as a shoot. Well, in order to engage him from where you are, you'd be shooting right over the shoulder of the guy that's at 3 yards in front of you. Our rule of thumb, going back to CQB, right? We can take shots. We don't take shots within 1 meter or arm's reach is an easy way to think about that of a friendly unless you have absolutely no other choice. So I should, again, be stepping to my right as I draw to make it safer for the guy right in front of me while I prepare to shoot the guy at 7 yards to my right. But as I step, I should be curious about the guy behind him because I don't know what he is yet. As I step, I determine he's a threat too. Now I should be engaging both of those guys, and I actually have to step further to my right to keep the guy directly in front of me safe. So the point is, I've got all these scripts pre-programmed into the neuro devices. You're standing there. I can feed these scripts to you at random. Oh, by the way, the total exposure of each target is going to be 3 to 5 seconds again, and you don't know how long it is until you're there. And you have to make a flash assessment of the environment, followed by purposeful movement to an engagement with your handgun. I don't consider this really tactics, but what we find is all major sports are doing this sort of training. This is no different than the skills you use. Let's say you're playing soccer. You don't want to pass the ball too close to the defender. You got two defenders coming after you. You want to maneuver so that they can't double team you, right? You stack them, or football or whatever. So this is the other thing that I start doing in these classes using his system is flash assessment to purposeful movement to threat engagement with your handgun or rifle, as the case may be. I see you chewing on that.
Oh, I like this. I like this a lot. Yeah. No, I got to come to your class at Carl's in September. I want to do this.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, my analogy is, again, this isn't scenarios, but this is the equivalent. Every major sports team spends time in the weight room, spends time on strength training. This is the equivalent of training your visual perception, cognition, decision cycle in those 3 to 5 second increments that you need in a fight.
So, you know how in my book I divide drills up and I have a category called isolation drills?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this would be, and you can only isolate one attribute, I should say, not task, one element at a time, whether it's speed or accuracy or movement or something finer like grip on the draw or whatever. You can only really work on one element at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I would think by my way of categorizing this stuff and thinking about it, this is like an isolation drill for decision making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because you can build all the movement skills and the shooting skills separate from this, but this is a way to isolate that actual that decision cycle, like you said, taking in the input, making a proper decision, and acting on it.
Right. Well, and we say decision cycle, but let me back up a step. So in the last scenario I gave there, where the guy to your right's a threat, and when you begin to move right, you can see the guy behind him. What many people, they never look at the guy behind him. So it's not, they don't, you can't make a decision until you have the information.
Yeah.
So you actually have to perceive it first. So now let's do it simple. I put 3 targets online, or 3 subjects online, as we say. They're not a target until they indicate they're a threat. And I give you a threat stimulus on one of them. And can you, the shooter, maintain sufficient awareness of your sighting system relationship to the threat to be getting good hits on the threat, and simultaneously see if the situation changes and one of the other 2 targets now is a threat also, and you need to engage it. If you don't see it, you can't make a decision about it. And what we find is, literally, many of us cannot see it while we're shooting. It is not in our attentional awareness. It's like that drill when they're bouncing the basketball and the gorilla walks through.
Oh yeah.
And you don't see it. And so you're right. It is exercising the decision cycle, but really we're starting a step before that. We're starting with perception, and it is trainable. It's something that is a skill that we don't train.
And so, like, the ODA, or OODA loop, however you want to pronounce it, has been a buzzword tactically for a long time now. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, I love John Boyd's stuff. I think it's phenomenal research. But like, this is actually like a legitimate way to truly train that cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas a lot of times we talk about it, but we might as well be saying Beetlejuice 3 times for all the value it actually has.
And the thing I love, again, is that, yeah, I've got to run pretty small classes in order to do it. But again, I can give people, 30 or 40 reps of this in a half a day, a class of people. So you're getting enough exposure to get those repetitions to actually create a lasting change in performance, skill, ability, which is the definition of learning, right? So that's what I really enjoy about it.
So tell everybody how to get in one of these classes. How can they get a hold of you? How can they sign up?
Yep. Well, honestly, I'm only doing half dozen or so of them a year. I own a store, I own a gun store and an indoor range, and have a very vibrant, absolute beginner training program at home in the Seattle area. But I am on the road, doing 6, maybe 8 of these a year this year. And the way to find it is westcoastarmorynorth.com. And you got to have the North in there. There's another company that's West Coast Armory. westcoastarmorynorth.com. Go to the training page. The very top of the page will be labeled out of state. Because again, the majority of stuff we do is at home in Washington. But we're going to be in Tennessee a couple of times. We're going to be in Utah. We're in Oklahoma in June. We're in Fort Worth in June. We'll be in upstate New York. I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Georgia. We just added Georgia. That isn't even on the website yet, but it will be in a couple of days. We're being hosted at a site in Georgia. So that's my 2-day. I call it Applied Defensive Handgun Skills, and that's where I get into this stuff and the things that, to me, it's the things that I think are being underrepresented in the training community. My goal is, I think I've got another 4 or 5 years maybe of being a viable trainer that people are interested in training with. And I want to get as many people exposed to this additional way of thinking as I can. I'm really excited to get people exposed to it that are trainers themselves, that are already trainers or will be that next generation of trainers, just so they've got some more ideas. Take what's useful and discard the rest. I think, wasn't that, I don't remember which martial artist said that.
Bruce Lee.
Sounds like a Bruce Lee thing, doesn't it?
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Take what's useful and discard the rest. Sounds like a Bruce Lee thing.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my passion. That's my interest. And that's how you can find it.
Well, thanks for coming on, my friend. This has, as always, been a great conversation. I love talking to you about this stuff. And I'm going to come to your class at Carl's.
I would love that.
I need to get in that. I'm gonna sign up for that.
Yep, that would be awesome. That would be, if you could fit that in your schedule. And Carl's a great place to do it. Carl's a wonderful host, of course, and another man that again, high-level competitive shooter, master class in a couple of divisions, if I remember correctly. I'm sorry, GM, not a master, a GM in several divisions, and but with an absolute focus as well on defensive shooting. And I've known Carl for years and love working with him.
Oh, likewise. And for everybody out there, definitely check out John's stuff. I've known you for quite some time now, and we've had a lot of these rabbit hole conversations.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I can think of several where I have modified my opinion to match yours as I've gotten older and wiser.
Well, I certainly do things different now than I did back then too, and that, to me, that's growth, right? That's what it's all about. Is it's not about dogma. It's I want to have a doctrine that makes sense, but I get that by getting exposed constantly to other instructors and top performers.
Yep. So definitely seek out John, and also I got to give a plug to Dustin Solomon's books too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually, Andy Stanford gave me a copy, actually.
Yep.
And it's very good stuff. So if you're interested in all of these things, you really need to check this out, especially because, like we've been talking about for over an hour now, there's more to fighting than just running a gun. Running a gun matters. It's arguably the single most important piece.
Absolutely critical element.
It's like I said, it may be the single most important piece, but it's not the only piece, and you got to be good at the rest of it too. So, we need to do this again. Would you be open to coming back on the show in a couple of months and doing some more?
Yeah. Absolutely would. Hey, for those that missed it, buildingshooters.com is Dustin's website. You can find out about his books there and about the neurosystem and so on. I want to put that plug in there for people that are interested in diving into it more.
Yeah, and the books are fantastic. I don't have any personal experience yet with the system. I'll get that with you out at Carl's. But I like the books a lot. So thanks again for coming on, my friend.
Thank you. Been good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always great to. I love these discussions because it gets the juices flowing in my brain as well.
I'm already thinking of a couple drills I want to add to my applications class just from our conversation.
Sweet. I look forward to hearing about it.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. I want all of you to think about all these things and use them in your training, and everybody get better at the things you need to be good at, and the things you want to be good at, or just life in general. And I will talk to everyone again next time.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.